Oh, very
All
nice.
right. Hey, Mike,
We got you, Bobby.
how are you today?
All good. All good. All
Hey,
good
Mike,
on my end.
can we make fun? And when Broderick attacked you at the tournament that year, can we talk about that just to talk about how crazy tennis is?
We can do it and talk about anything you want.
Poor Mike we were there enjoying ourselves, and a piece of the court came up and Roddick went ballistic. We're like, dude, this is a parking lot. What do you expect? They want to play on a parking lot and you want the US Open. Good luck with that.
Actually, when Roddick complained, he was complaining about something on the court, and I went out there to go out there and see it with him, and literally there was nothing there. I mean, it was nothing there. So, but he's has a reputation for that. If things aren't going the way he wants, whatever, he just kind of makes stuff up. I mean, so they, when he was in the tournament, they were always on pins and needles. I was always on call when he was on the court. They said, be ready at any moment to show up here and get on the court. They always had me. When he was playing, I always had to be there.
We remember I was about 2 rows behind John Hanna, and we see Mike and we're like, uh-oh. And we were going to raise you a little bit, but then we said, no, this might not be a good time. Because we know of Roddick's reputation as well from what he did to Trevor, back in the day at the tournament. So yeah, we're familiar with some of Roddick's hijinks. Yeah. So
good, but everybody loves it though too. That's why they would go to see him, because they always knew something was going to come up. I mean, so
that is true.
And he's connected with, is it Swing Vision that he's connected? Yes. He's connected with somebody now, right?
Yeah, Swing Vision. Him and James Blake do the promo for Swing Vision.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
And what is Swing Vision?
Must have been fun for them to get together and make a little commercial like that.
No, Mike, so I think you cut out a little bit. Swing Vision is a video. It's kind of cool, actually. It's video on your phone that they're trying to get it where you can satellite line calls. It has the capability. It's kind of like a little bit of a dart fish, where you can do some stroke analysis. They're moving toward being able to chart a match. They're also they're moving toward line calls, radar for a speed gun for your serve. So kind of cool. And he and Blake do the opening to the little promo where they joke about Andy's hair falling out. So, he's got to deal with that too. That hat is now there for a reason. So,
that's funny.
But it's an interesting product. It really is. If it does, if they can get it to where they haven't released it as far as the line calling aspect feature yet, because it's what Sean, they said that it's at 90% effective. They want to get it a little higher before they reach it. That'll be a great thing for Alta too. When somebody calls up and said Swing Vision was wrong, we lost the match and Alta's going to say, "Oh Lord, help us." What do we do now? Swing Vision was wrong. Famous last words. So we don't want to keep you, Mike. So Sean, do you want to rock, or how do we want to start?
Well, I was good with calling that a start. I mean, if we're gonna name drop Andy Roddick in the beginning, how do we cut that out?
we won't.
I'm gonna have to splice it somewhere in the middle, because that's always fun to do. But yeah, let me give a little bit of an introduction of what we're gonna do, and then I'll ask Bobby to introduce Mike, because you can give a little better explanation. And Mike is nice enough to come with us and chat a little bit. Is from Signature Tennis and builds all of our tennis courts in the Atlanta area, at least according to me and Bobby. He builds all the tennis courts in Atlanta and repairs them, thankfully, as well. So I am sure there are competitors out there, but Mike is the guy we go to. And so, Bobby, do me a favor. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship? I think you have Mike's guys at your courts right now, right?
I believe so. We have somebody's working on the lights, and we're still getting some windscreens put up. So yes, poor Mike. As we like to joke about Windermere, it's a tough business, the court business in Atlanta, because the soil. Everybody says you get between 3 and 5 years between refurbishings, and Windermere, we're always on the low side of that. And I try to explain to people, it's like, well, take a look around you. The only place flat in this entire neighborhood are the tennis courts. So chances are this is fill. And probably less than 5 miles away, there's a quarry that sends up, does underground explosions twice a day. So if you think that these courts, we're pretty lucky to have them the way they are, considering what these poor courts have to go through. So yeah, we keep Mike busy, and we're also known for a decent weather storm that goes through during the summertime, which will knock down some windscreens. So it's a interesting place. It sits up on a hill, so we get all the bad weather. But I think, Mike, how long it's been, how long ago did you leave Southeastern?
18 years ago.
Okay, so that now we're getting scary, because probably Mike had just left Southeastern. I was speaking with somebody at Southeastern, and somebody else said, hey, you probably need to speak with this gentleman named Mike Imbornone. He just left Southeastern. And I called Mike, and I don't think I've spoken to Southeastern since. So, we did White Columns together, where I was at White Columns for 14 years. Mike was my go-to guy. And that was another fun, the idea of a successful tennis program was not hearing about it. So again, a lot of pressure on Mike to make sure that what we had looked and played very good. So Mike, tell us, and I know you have a bit of a playing background. How did you get into the business?
Yeah, so I was a player. I grew up playing junior tennis in Georgia. Went on a full scholarship to Georgia Southern and played for 4 years. And so tennis is my background, and the way that I ended up getting into the tennis court construction business was I ran a small little club by the name of Brittany, which is down behind Oglethorpe College. I grew up there, and then after I graduated, I was managing that little club there and teaching at some other places. And I used to buy equipment from Southeastern Tennis, and would go down to Virginia Highlands where they were to pick up a net or whatever, and just ask the owner that was sitting behind the desk one day if he needed a salesperson. And he said, I was 21 years old. And he said, sure, kid. And he threw me a bunch of catalogs and said, have at it. I'll pay you 10% or whatever you sell. And so I would, I'd teach some lessons, and then I'd, run to the clubs and so forth in between and apartment complexes. And it was an easy entry for me because I grew up playing tennis in the area. A lot of the pros, older pros, obviously at this point knew me and so forth. So it was a kind of an easy entry into that world for me.
And your brother plays as well, correct?
He does. He
Yes.
He didn't take it as seriously as I did. Didn't play college tennis or anything, but he certainly played, and he played on the in the juniors and so forth like I did. Yep.
So after Georgia Southern, you're teaching a little bit. We start gravitating to the court business. So you've pretty much during that time span witnessed where tennis has become part of the culture of Atlanta and the way a subdivision is built. The necessity for at least 2 lighted tennis courts and a bathroom so they could be ALTA certified. How did you get approached by? Do you work with builders directly? Do they come to you after the fact? How does that work with some of the bigger builders that you've dealt with in the city?
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. I mean, at the time that I got into the business, the market, which is now 38 years ago, had just begun where tennis courts started popping up in neighborhoods. And who the first builder was that did it, I'm not sure. You have where I was in Brittany, there was certainly, there were 6 tennis courts there, which was unusual back in the day. And then a few other ones, Briarcliff Woods and maybe Leafmore Creek. And there's a few other older neighborhoods. But, whoever the builder was that started it, and how things go with competition, decided to put tennis courts in a swimming pool kind of in a neighborhood to get things going. And other builders just followed as Atlanta, started to, really develop. And that's kind of the way that it went. And as far as the builders go, absolutely. I mean, they would, at the time when I was, just a salesperson, there was 3 companies. There was, Southeastern Tennis and Talbot, who's under different ownership now, and then Crawford Construction that was owned by Bill Shippey. So those three companies were, present in Atlanta when tennis started to evolve into the neighborhoods and so forth, in our area here.
Fantastic. So now, how did COVID treat you to get through that?
From a court building standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, how were you affected by the couple of months shutdown and then the revitalization once COVID, tennis was identified as a safe haven?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting how it all played out for us. We were in the middle of, numerous projects. So, just like everyone initially, we were not allowed to work at any of the facilities that we were in the middle of jobs on. But fortunately, it was short-lived, and, we ended up on some projects where they soon, we were working for general contractors and so forth, and they, got letters of acceptance for us to be able to come and work on the sites and so forth. So fortunately, we were only sidelined for a short period of time where we really couldn't do, any of the projects that we're in the middle of. Now, of course, it affected, the clubs and the neighborhoods and so forth, dramatically, where they pretty much just shut down. We did have some that took advantage of the fact that there were no players on the courts and had us do work, but at most, they pretty much just banned everyone from being there, including ourselves. So, but it turned pretty quickly. I mean, it was a short-lived, problem for us, and then we were able to start working again.
And forgive me, because as Sean said, we've had a relationship for a long time, and I think overlooking something important. When people reach out to you, what is in the capacity usually? What is their first interest in signature? I mean, obviously, I know it's through courts, and then I get all my stuff through you. What is usually the first reach out? Is it court equipment, or is court resurfacing, court building? What do people reach out to you to discuss first?
That's kind of a good question. It's because we service so many different type of clients. I mean, it's very varied. There's not really, one answer for that. I mean, some know us really as a construction company first, because obviously we build entire tennis centers and we own all of our own construction equipment and paving equipment and graders and all that. And that's how they know us. And that's what they're calling us for when there is a new project. And that would fall, I'm going to say, in the category of general contractors, where a New South Construction has a Rome Tennis Center on the books or something like that. They all know us as a construction company. I mean, and then when it comes to the country clubs, it's very varied. All of them know that we, take care of and build, clay tennis courts, which are in the country clubs, of course, as well as the hard courts. But most of them also get all of their court equipment from us. So, it could easily be, a phone call for as little as, hey, Mike, we got a problem with our center anchor and we got a match tomorrow. Can you get somebody down here to fix it for us so we can use the court? Or it could be, hey, we need, two of our courts completely torn out and we need you to come down here and get us an estimate to rebuild it. So, the country club market they know us as, I'm going to call it, say, a full service, company. The neighborhoods, most of that business comes through these days the management companies, because most of the neighborhoods are managed through a management company just like yours is, Bobby. So, and that they're going to know us more as, a company that resurfaces courts as well as replaces windscreens and does all that. A lot of them don't even know we're a construction company, because it's very rare that a management company gets involved in a construction project. It happens, but it doesn't happen often that they're involved with that. Every now and then you'll have older neighborhood that's rebuilding courts, but I'm going to say most of them don't know that because it's not something that they have to deal with. It's a rarity. And then the rest of our clients would be, private homeowners and some apartment complexes and so forth. And that really varies too, depending on where they got our name from. We're a little unique from the standpoint that we are hard to find. If you go on the internet or you go to try to find us on the web, we don't put any effort into that. It's not that you can't find Signature Tennis, but we're not spending any time, any resources, trying to advertise to the public. All of our business comes through referrals. So depending on who you got your referral from would really depend on what you were looking for. That would kind of initiate that first call,
And you brought it up, but we've done some wild stuff together at Wycombs. We literally, we raise 2 courts up? How many inches do we have to raise that court up to make it playable?
Did that. Yep. That's right.
There's various levels that go into how much are you, and I know you're involved in it obviously because we've done it, but tell us about how the clubs are going to the LED lighting and what that plays a role in what you're doing.
Yeah, that's kind of been a very interesting phenomena. I mean, for been doing this 38 years, and for the first 34 years, lighting didn't change at all. And when I say not at all, I mean really not at all. Everything was metal halide. It was all the same technology. People would try to tweak it here and there, but it was a small tweak one way or another. It was basically all the same. So everybody had, for the most part, same lighting, maybe a little different layout, but it all was identical for the most part. So LED shows up on the market. I'm going to say in earnest in the tennis industry, we did the first project at Dunwoody Country Club about 6 to 7 years ago, where we got approached by our manufacturer and they were convinced that they had the LED, kind of down pat, and, I kind of trusted them that they did. But I should have known better as a contractor. That's never the case in our industry, where the contractors are always kind of the test market and the guinea pigs, because our industry is so small that nothing gets tested before it ends up at clubs. So we put it in at Dunwoody Country Club as a test, 2 courts. We put it in at no charge for them just to see what would happen. And it was, I'll just be honest, it was an epic fail. It was not ready to be on the market. There were constant problems. And we went, worked with our manufacturer for probably a year and a half, trying to work all the bugs out. And I'm going to say, 4 years ago, they got it right, and then many other kind of followed after that. So now, kind of fast forwarding, there are many companies that have, a good LED product out there. Some are out of the tennis industry. Some have nothing to do with the tennis industry that market into any industry, including tennis. And it's now become a regular thing where we're converting, metal halide fixtures or redoing systems from metal halide into LED. So it's fantastic for the end user and for the clubs, because the performance of the fixtures is not even a comparison to the old metal halide. I mean, the lighting is so much better. Players can see under it so much better. Obviously, they're way more energy efficient. The maintenance on them is a fraction of what the old metal halide is. from our standpoint, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, it's industry has become, when I say competitive, that's an understatement. I mean, the fixtures now are sold at close to cost. I mean, because everybody, it was kind of interesting in tennis lighting. It was difficult to get anybody to service you years ago, except the tennis court contractor was the only one. If you called an electric company, they didn't want to have anything to do with it. Just pain in their neck, didn't want to deal with it. Now, everybody's into LED, and it's kind of interesting. There's so many different types of LED fixtures on the market, kind of driven virtually all the profit out of it. Yet, they have incredible warranties on them. So like I said, from the end user, it's fantastic. For the contractor, we do it because we need to do it. We want the relationships with the club. It's kind of a crazy market that we're in. All the profit is basically profitless at this point, which is kind of a nutty thing. It's still pretty new technology still.
So in that case, it would be like, sorry for jumping in, it'd be like creating a tennis court that doesn't need any maintenance anymore, right?
That's right. I mean, that's the other crazy part is that, there is no money, to be made on maintenance because they come with these, fantastic warranties on them. But like I said, from a tennis player standpoint and from the club standpoint, best thing that's ever happened because
oh my gosh, the ability to flip a light on and flip it off and have it turn on and turn off at that time. Only tennis players know what that's like, to walk onto a tennis court, flip the light on, wait 10 minutes for them to warm up, and then if the lights go out, God forbid the light go out in the middle of your match, then you got another 15 minutes to turn them off and turn them back on. I remember the first time I saw them, I flipped them on. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I know. No, you're right. It is a big thing. The instant on and off is a major, major deal, especially if a timer turns the fixtures off, like you said, in the middle of a match. You go over and you flip the switch back on. You don't have to sit there and you're being conservative. It usually takes more like 20 minutes, for those lights to come back on a metal halide. So you're right. It's a major, major win for the clubs to have the LED. And these days, it's rare that a club is getting a product that has a lot of problems. Initially, there were in the beginning, just like everything, a lot of junk got put up. But now, even the ones that are coming, from a different industry, they're not the best out there, but they're way better than the metal halide that they're being, that they're replacing. So virtually everyone that's getting new LEDs is very pleased with what they're getting.
I'm gonna give Mike a little props here because this is where I don't think he gives himself enough credit, having gone through that journey with him. And Mike, when did we start? I think we started probably 3 years ago in our journey to convert them all to LED lights. And we not only have converted, but we raised our poles, which I think is a big deal. And we had gone to other subdivisions, and because we were a neighborhood HO driven with a management company, we were required to get more than one bid, even though, at the time I was very close with the particular manager, and we were pretty confident unless somebody came back and just blew us away, we knew that we were going to go with Mike, and it's in Mike we trust. And it's that relationship that makes the process that much easier, because you hate to say it, the end user themselves takes it for granted. They love it. Like you said, they turn the switch on and say, wow, this is great. If there's a problem, then everybody finds out about it. So as the person who's implementing a new technology, you do have to rely on, and you do rely on the relationship you had. And it did make the whole process entirely easier, having the relationship with Mike, knowing Mike from not only from a perspective, this is what he does, but he's a player. He knows a little bit of nuances. I literally had a salesman tell me, oh, these lights are okay. And we can tilt them to kind of get the back corner. What tilt, we're going to rig LED. I'm spending, $60,000 and we're talking about tilting lights to get a corner. Not what I wanted to hear. So it's a nice circumstance when you go in and you're working with somebody that you trust, and they help you walk through the process. So I think, it might not be making him money, but the trust and what he's built out throughout his years in the industry is, we all thank you for it.
Well, yeah, and it's doing is only been done at a few other clubs. I mean, as a matter of fact, it's the only neighborhood I can think about that went the extra mile to bring the light poles, to spend the money to bring the light poles up to 27 feet, which means basically taking the entire system out and putting new poles. Then it turns into a construction project, not just a retrofit project. Dunwoody Country Club did it, Ansley's done it, Capital City's done it, but as far as neighborhoods go, Windermere is the only one I can think of that has done that. And the reason that there's an advantage to that is when you go up that extra from 23 feet to 27 feet, you can put a much more powerful LED fixture up that allows you to give you much more light. If you were to try to put that same fixture up at a mounting height of 23 feet, which is what the metal halide was at, there would be hot spots all over it. The lighting would be too powerful, too hot in areas, and really the court would not be playable. So, Windermere was gone the extra. And we enjoy that type of, work where, it's a little bit of a challenge, to take it all out. And like I said, it turns into a construction project, not just to take the fixtures off and put new fixtures on. So, you've gotten them to do the best, really. I mean, what can be done out there, which is cool.
And it is fun. Like Mike says, I mean, we literally had huge poles all over the, I mean, it looked like a construction site all over again. But the funny part is, and I'll be wonder to see, like we have a fairly decent sized affluent neighborhood right across the street who went to LEDs first, but didn't go the extra. And now they come over and play at ours and they're miserable going back to their house because, what a difference raising the poles, getting
that's
the
what
extra
I tell
light.
people. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, what I tell people is when, they talk to me about it, because there's so many choices, like in this industry. And I said, no matter what you pick these days, you're going to be happy in this. There is no question about it. At this point, I can feel confident. There are people putting up fixtures that are less than 50% as powerful as the ones we're selling, and they're still way better than the metal halide. I said, the difference is that in 5 years or 10 years, when everybody has LED, then you're going to look at it and say, you know what, our LEDs are not that great compared to a Windermere or a Dunwoody Country Club. I said, that's the difference. I mean, that's what but initially you're going to be happy as to be, no matter what you pick, because they're that much, the technology is that much better. It just is,
Well, Sean, I've used up mine. I think I should have waited on Roddick, but that's always been one of my favorite, just sitting there with John and watching poor Mike have to go through this on a night we were supposed to be enjoying ourselves and how it became confrontational. But like you said, everybody's kind of aware of that can happen in a Roddick situation. And maybe some of his other hijinks will come up later in some other podcasts if we get the right person on. But anything that you want to point in Mike's direction?
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask about the tennis court industry as well, specifically because as a vendor, I'm curious. So, Mike, are you a guy that can actually answer the question that I can't seem to find an answer to, which is how many tennis courts are actually in the Metro Atlanta area?
Yeah, well, at one time, and I don't know who had the answer, way back when, but I'm going to say about 15 years ago, 12 to 15 years ago, there was about 10,000. So now my best guess would be that there was somewhere between, I would guess between 15 and 20,000 courts in Metro Atlanta.
Yeah, and that's just a crazy number, and I think it's fun. And I don't know how. Like, I obviously you check the Googles and you say, okay, well, Google knows everything, right? How many tennis courts are there? It's like, well, in Atlanta there are 441 tennis courts. I'm like, no, that can't possibly be true. That's not. I know for a fact that's not accurate, but I haven't actually counted them. So it's an interesting thought in my world to be able to say, okay, there are potentially 20,000 tennis courts in Atlanta. I know for a fact Mike doesn't. You can't possibly, if all of those tennis courts needed fixing, there's no bandwidth. Like, there's no single guy that can go out and fix all the tennis courts.
Oh, no. And, in Atlanta is kind of an interesting market in our industry. I tell people that I've been in a lot of places, include the U.S. Open, inspected their tennis courts. The Atlanta market is, we have more tennis court contractors here than in any other city in the world, really. And there's four of us that are capable of building a tennis center. That's very unusual in one city. And then there's probably another 10 companies that can do resurfacing and that kind of stuff. So tremendous number but the numbers support it, because once you just look at Atlanta, you start expanding, you start going out 60, 90 miles into places like, Rome and Macon, and, you start going out, east toward Augusta and so forth. There's a tremendous Columbus, big tennis community, tremendous amount of, tennis courts. So my point was, though, I would venture to say that the quality of tennis court coatings and the way things get done here with finished product is probably some of the very best in the world, because of competition, everyone's gotten pushed. And there's, you go to other places and you look, and as a tennis court contractor, especially, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe at the U.S. Open they get away with that. They have fuzzy lines out here. How can they have fuzzy lines at the U.S. Open? It's like, how's that possible? So everybody takes it for granted because that's all they know, and most of the people just play here. But it's not, the quality that is here because of the amount of competition is really tremendous here.
And I love that answer, because that's right up that's how my brain works. Like, if there's competition, quality increases, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, we're all pushing each other. People that don't want competition don't want to get better, because there's very few people on their own that are going to push themselves to do better and be better if somebody's not pushing you. You know what I mean? We all inherently are going to be a little lazy, because we can be, but here you can't be lazy. In Atlanta, it's in this area, because this is probably the biggest tennis market in the world. You have to be good. That's all there is to it. You have to be.
And I have one more question. I can't believe we almost didn't go this direction. Mike, what do you see as far as the going towards the pickleball? Obviously, we were probably unique in that we turned 2 tennis courts into 6 pickleball courts. We just didn't do the double lines. We changed them. What is your business like with the growth of pickleball's popularity?
Yeah, and we could have an entire podcast on this. It's
a deal. We'll see you tomorrow.
Off the chain. And when I say off the chain, we are doing something pickleball every day at this point. Every day that we work, doing something pickleball. So whether we're converting courts into permanent courts, whether we're just striping courts for somebody on an existing tennis court, or whether we're building new courts, new facilities, it's the growth is, it's astronomical how much we're doing with pickleball. I'm gonna just say that at this point, it's probably 20 to 25% of our business, which is, it's hard for me to even imagine that could have ever been true, that another game like pickleball or whatever it would be could grow like that. But that's the way it's going.
That's awesome and scary. And yes, let's do the pickleball conversation.
Yeah, the thing that I think is refreshing in my mind, or makes me feel good about it, is that most of the tennis players that convert into pickleball or playing pickleball, most are still tennis players. But what talking to a lot of pros, they're using pickleball to get people that don't have the best racket skills and so forth, and are not the best athletes, out on a court where they're learning eye-hand coordination and racket skills, and they're having success quickly. And then, they're converting them over to the tennis court, and, they become kind of dual players or whatever you want to call it. And it's much more comfortable for them. So that's very encouraging to me, because just the number of participants, of people getting their fannies out and doing something active and moving because of that game has increased exponentially. It's just it's unbelievable, to be honest with you. It's just unbelievable.
I like that. We had a similar bunch of questions coming in saying, what about the kids? Does it help some of the kids that might have an easier time hitting the ball a little closer to themselves, a little easily convertible from ping pong and a little smaller stick to hit the ball with? So it's fun to see the in combination, because we have conversation with pickleball people, with league people. Hey, what is this going to be? Where are all the courts going to be? What's the next thing? Like, what actually happens with all these pickleball courts? In talking to Alta and other pros and saying, hey, what is the next thing here, and where should all of us, where should we be? We want to talk to everybody about that, and hearing that the courts are from you, that are literally being built and striped and converted, really just confirms those numbers of how popular pickleball really is right now.
Well, and the other thing is that, courts that were, we'll just call them abandoned or used so seldomly in a lot of counties and cities that are like outlying areas, when you get outside of quote unquote metro Atlanta, where they'd have a bank of 2 or 4 or 6, and nobody was using them. I mean, like abandoned, and they will contract us to come in and convert them into pickleball courts, and the place is booming, with people out, using the courts, or they'll take 2 of 4 and, convert them into, like Bobby's neighborhood did, and we'll have 6 pickleball courts and 2 tennis courts. So what it does is, it's just increased the number of people that feel comfortable going out and getting involved in a racket sport, because it's easier. Let's face it. The entry's so easy. I'm not telling y'all anything. Y'all know better than I do, but it's just a simple thing for them to do. So counties, cities, school districts, you name it, they're spending the money. Clubs, it's unbelievable, how we'll give you an example here. This, Bob, if you guys don't know this is going to blow your mind. Capital City, okay, full all the time, 11 clay courts, have to send, the draw straws to see who has to go to Blackburn this season to go, play out there, because they don't have enough clay courts. They have us taking one of the clay courts out right now and converting it into 4 hard pickleball courts, because the demand's so high at the club for it. And, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, that's impossible. That would never, ever happen. And here we are, taking out a premium tennis court to put in pickleball courts.
That says a lot.
It's a ton. The thing is that if it's embraced and done in the right way, I think it just, the 2 games will complement each other. I think a lot of the pushback has gone away at this point, because there are so many tennis players that now are playing pickleball that, in the beginning, we'd almost get rocks thrown at us. At places where we'd strike pickleball lines or do something pickleball by the tennis players. And now we don't feel the pushback at all, really, because I think so many tennis players are also playing the game,
And just like everything else, it just takes time. We settle in. We realize this is going to happen.
Yep.
It's going to naturally convert.
But like you guys said, when we converted, trust me, we were watching those pickleball courts because we were ready for the fallback. We're like, oh boy, this better catch on.
Yep.
And then the other night, literally, I was sitting with one of the guys who is a big player, but he was playing tennis, and we looked down and all 6 of our pickleball courts were going. And we were like, well, we need more. And it was a good feeling, because it was, well, we were right.
That answers that.
We stuck to our guns. We heard a few complaints in the beginning, but we were right. And, I think you're going to continue to see the sport grow. I think what Mike's talks to, and we all know, they're certainly used properly. Unfortunately, a lot of the problems with tennis and the pushback are systemic, that the way the game is promoted, the way our organizations position ourselves. So we look at pickleball when it comes in, it's cannibalizing a product. Tennis is having a hard enough time. Why do we want to just share with somebody? And then we don't look at it and say, well, it could be a great, forget about, everybody focuses on the seniors. It says it's an easier game. They don't have to run as much. It's a great way to introduce a paddle sport. As you said, the racket's closer to you. It doesn't require the same amount of eye-hand coordination. You're not having to run. So it's a great initial introduction to tennis as well, if done properly. So, now that it's being embraced more, hopefully we'll see more crossover. And I think it'll help both of the sports in the long run, for sure.
I do too. I mean, that's the way I see it, because I think that most tennis professionals, realize it's, here to stay. And, the smart ones like you, Bobby, are embracing it and using it to help, increase, the programming and so forth, instead of looking at it as competition to it. I mean, some of the pros are teaching a lot of pickleball at this point, and I mean, they love doing it. I mean, they go from the tennis court right to the pickleball court and running drills and so forth on the pickleball court. And, I think initially everybody thought nobody is going to pay to, take lessons and drills and so forth, but that's not true. I mean, I'm talking to the clubs all the time, the directors and so forth, and people will pay to have a good time and enjoy themselves and get better at anything. I mean, if it's done right. I mean, so I think that the two, are going to, at least in this market, are going to coexist very, very nicely. I don't see it as an issue at all.
That's good. And we like talking to you, Mike, because as the guy who everybody calls to fix their tennis courts, you get to talk to guys like Bobby. You get to talk to the one neighborhood doing it right with the lights, besides just the guys who run the big country clubs. But you get to talk to everybody. You find their pain points. You find what their next thing is, what they really want. And you're kind of that, I don't want to say fly on the wall, because you're not hiding. You're right there. But you're the guy coming in, fixing some things that they need, but also we get to talk tennis with you because you also get it.
Uh-oh, did we lose him?
We lost him.
Yeah. Okay, you're back, Mike?
I'm here. I got you. I got you, Bobby.
Okay.
Oh, good. I like it. Sorry about that. But I wanted to ask you, Mike, because we'll let you go, because we're at our time where we start just talking amongst ourselves. But I had two questions. One is my king of tennis question, which I want to ask, but I also want to find out from you. You said you do zero marketing, zero advertising. You don't promote. I just checked your website. You're still working on it, which means it doesn't exist. So what is it that you need as a business? What do you want? If somebody came to you and said, hey, I could help your business. Obviously, we don't know what that is, but for you on your end, you have everything you want and everybody calls you have all the business you could possibly need, or is there more for you that you would like to see coming in? What would you want as a vendor in the Atlanta area?
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily looking for anything different, I should say, than what we have. I mean, the mix of business is, extremely satisfying what we do. I mean, what we try to do is try to work with, I mean, and this may sound cliche, but we try not to work with people that are not nice and unpleasant. And we try to work with all the pleasant, great people, I mean, that are out there. And fortunately in our industry, the majority of everybody that we get to work with falls in that category. But if we run across somebody that's unpleasant, I tell Kathy, I'm like, you know what? None of us need that. Life's too short. I mean, I don't care if they can bring us extra business. We want the nice people, the people that treat us with respect. We treat them with respect. So I wouldn't change anything about our clientele, or, different clientele or even more clientele necessarily, because we do have plenty of calls coming in constantly. Internally, would I improve some things? Absolutely. I mean, our efficiency and getting proposals back to people and being more efficient on small things internally. We do a great job of getting things done outside, in the workforce, where people need that done. But internally, there's always a backlog of paperwork and things to do that I would change. But I wouldn't change my market mix or my customers or even really try to increase them. I'm extremely happy with that.
That's a great answer. I love it. Nope, everything's good. Love it.
Well, as a customer, you have to understand and appreciate this man. When you go to a project with him, we live in Metro Atlanta as it is. The traffic issues that exist in Metro Atlanta. When you're doing a project with Mike, and you see Mike walking around either at, and I know him, and I'm like, Mike, it's 8:00 in the morning. What time did you get here? And it makes you feel better. Outside the fact he's pretty jacked up, so you wouldn't recognize him as a tennis player because he's got some guns on him. It helps us to be working with him because despite the size of Atlanta, the number of courts, the number of projects, he's there, and that just makes you feel better. And we thank you for that, Mike.
I appreciate it. I mean, that's the fun part, is getting to see the customers and see the projects and see what you're doing, and so that's the most enjoyable part of the business, So any business owner that doesn't get to get involved in their end product and so forth, I kind of feel sorry for them. I mean, because that's the fun. That's the real fun right there.
Seeing a satisfied customer in person makes a huge difference. All right, so sure. Last question, Mike, and we'll let you go. I don't know if Bobby prepared you for this one. We like to give people a head start on this question because it's my favorite thing to ask people. But if you were king of tennis, so you're obviously integrated in the tennis world. You played tennis growing up. I don't know if you play currently anymore or if you watch tennis on TV. You're definitely integrated into the business of tennis here in Atlanta. And I'm curious, if you were king of tennis, whether it locally, internationally, wherever, is there anything you would change or like to see different about anything tennis related anywhere in the world?
I'll just kind of fall back on what we got into with the pickleball and just say that I'm very hopeful that two sports intermingle with each other and complement each other going forward, because I think that one way or another, sports are going to become, integrated, and I just kind of hope that transition and the organizations that kind of push tennis and so forth and control tennis realize that it's something that needs to be embraced. And I mean, you guys kind of know where I'm going with all this, but that's the one thing I've been a little disappointed in, I guess, that I would like to see change attitudes and so forth about another sport that to me is a very complementary sport that I think is helpful, to the tennis industry, and it's not competition. That's the way that I see it going forward, and I just kind of hope that that's the way that it really does go. That's all.
Mike, we appreciate it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's a conversation we'll have further, I'm sure, because Bobby and I are working to...
Many conversations on
that. Yeah, no, I like that. The pickleball is here to stay, and it's got to figure out how to coexist with tennis, and it's got to no longer be viewed in that old school way of cannibalizing tennis. Alta's got its problem. Do they go into pickleball leagues, and does it Does it harm their tennis participation? Pickleball guys trying to figure out how to do the leagues and how to get the tournaments going, and it's going to be here. And can they live together? And that's going to be on us to be able to help the culture of Atlanta integrate the new sport that's coming anyway.
There's no doubt about it. And I think overall Atlanta has done, a pretty doggone good job overall. I mean, so it's just, hopefully it just continues going in the right direction,
I think so too. Bobby, what else you got?
I'm good. I enjoyed it. I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you so much.
Oh, I enjoyed it very much, guys. Great conversation. And I appreciate you guys inviting me and letting me be a part of what you guys are doing. It's fantastic. I think it's very, very unique and going to be very helpful to the tennis community for what you guys are doing here.
That's the goal. We hope it is. But I appreciate it, and let's stay in touch. I know you're in touch with Bobby because you're still fixing things at his place, but I know probably 12 to 14 different neighborhoods that have those little center clip space of things that are all screwed up, and those are like $5 to fix, right? You just pour it in a little magic spray and it's done, right?
Nothing's $5. $5 is nothing, but yeah, inexpensive.
Awesome. All right, Mike. I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll talk again soon.
All right.
Have a good weekend,
See you
guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Pause. There. Stop.